And it's so uncomfortable. It is genuinely. She doesn't correct herself. She's going to go.
It is too short to be dressed. I could never dress.
Hi everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning and thanks for coming to Diversity and Inclusion Week here in the College of Communication Information. If you guys haven't been to a panel before, kind of how this operates is that we have a panel set up for you guys that we've recruited personally to kind of give you an inside-out perspective on everything on what everything looks like for diversity in between the black and the white and everything and beyond. So thank you for coming. This is our 9:40 to 55 session. If you're not meant to be here, please stay. We'd love to keep you in here. Our panel now is our social media and trolling. Anybody can tell me what trolling means? Yes.
So it's basically someone who's on the internet that uses social media or any other forms of communication in order to harm another person.
Right. If you didn't hear him, he said it's somebody using social media as a way to harm another person via social media. So that's kind of our overall topic today, but not only are we going to be touching on what social media and trolling looks like from the perspectives of people who are using it and have experienced it, but we're also going to dabble into what it looks like on the opposite end of the spectrum for a positive way we could use social media. And then ultimately the goal of today is for you all to get a better understanding of how people are dealing with it, what to do with it, and where we're going with social media. So moving forward, Miss Laura Mansfield is here to moderate our panel today. If you'll go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you so very much, and welcome to day 2, guys. We're glad to have you here. I'd just like to briefly introduce the panel, and then we'll move forward. Brandon Boatwright is a graduate student and a Clemson graduate, but we've accepted him as one of our own now. He is hard at work in the Adam Brown Social Media Command Center, so he's going to be able to talk about social media from a very specific and granular level. Then we have Corporal Kelly Kane with UT Police Department. We also have Jakob Johnson, he's a student athlete. And then we have Tala Shatara, who's a UT student. And so they will all have some interesting perspectives to share with you, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So Brandon, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Laura. And thanks everyone for being here this morning. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. This is kind of an awesome program, awesome week, and I'm just grateful to be a part of it. But I want to kick things off by kind of talking a little bit about the Adam Brown Social Media Command Center and some of the things that we're able to do, and how what we do kind of relates to the topic today, social media trolling, and that kind of thing. Over here on my to your left, my right shoulder, is kind of a screen that summarizes some of the conversation related to trolling right now. So what are people saying? Basically, I've input several keywords, trolls, troll, and trolling, into the software program. We're able to extract what people are saying about that topic over the course of the past 7 days. So you'll notice, again, it's kind of small up here. I'll kind of briefly mention it every now and then. But one of the unique things about this technology is it allows us to understand how trolling functions in certain ways, how individuals might be impacted by larger conversations that might be happening around them. And I have a couple of examples that I want to speak to related to trolling, and a couple of stories that I think might resonate and I think might provide some room for discussion later on in the session. So if you'll bear with me, I'll kind of share a couple of those. Over the summer, one of the books that I read was by John Ronson, and it was a book called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed." Great title to a book, right? So You've Been Publicly Shamed. The entire premise was, how do those folks who have been trolled on the internet, how do they recover in a way, right? How do they handle that process? And one of the stories that he talked about primarily was that of Justine Sacco. Does anyone know who that is? Nobody. Okay. All right. Well, this will be good for a story then. Justine Sacco she was a PR professional for a large organization in New York City. She was 30 years old at the time and had 170 Twitter followers. Not that many, right? PR professional, 170 Twitter followers, based out of New York. She had family in South Africa. And so she had planned on spending the holidays with her family in South Africa. So she flew from New York to London. And while she was, in that layover in London, she tweeted something that will be associated with her name forever. And I'll go ahead and just read her tweet. Her Twitter, first of all, I'll give you some context. Before this was filled with sarcastic posts and comments about kind of the indelicacies, like the struggles of traveling, right? But this one was one that really kind of caught people's attention. This was her at 10:19 in the morning on December 20th, 2013. Going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white. This is a PR professional who tweeted this, right? She tweeted it to her 170 followers, thinking that no one would, respond to it or anything like that. And she milled about the Heathrow terminal for quite some time in between her flight. Had no responses, so she turned off her phone and boarded the plane. It's an 11-hour flight from London to South Africa. Over the course of that 11 hours, her life completely changed. She was fired from her job midair without being told, without knowing it, and she became the world's #1 trending hashtag on Twitter. She had 170 followers. One of those 170 followers had taken that tweet and sent it to a reporter at Gawker, who then mentioned it, sent it out to his 15,000 followers. And from there, you can understand where things went. When she landed, there was a hashtag that was formed called #HasJustineLandedYet. So people were following this over the course of, it was a Friday night. People were following it on their Twitter feeds and trying to understand, trying to figure out, has she landed yet? And sure enough, someone went to the airport and took a picture of Justine as she got off of the flight and said, yep, here she is, wearing sunglasses to conceal her face. When she landed, she had text messages from friends from high school that she hadn't spoken to in years, saying, I'm so sorry that things are going the way they are. And her best friends had a text that said, call me immediately. This is an important story because not only did she tweet this obviously offensive and horrendous statement, but the aftermath of her as an individual as well is something that we're going to be kind of talking about and thinking about today is trolling and stuff on social media. Some of the, John Ronson, the author of that book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed, goes on to talk about how her intentions weren't necessarily to be racist, even though clearly the context of that tweet proved otherwise. But what happened was people tweeted at her some vile and horrendous things as well that we didn't even talk about. That a lot of folks who, some of the things that that were tweeted to her about what people should do to her, about what her life should be like now, obviously, right, made some very difficult moments for her after that. She was obviously fired in the air. Her family, when they got to South Africa, family claimed that she had disgraced them. She lived with this. John Ronson gives a TED Talk too, kind of talking about his book where he talks about Twitter as being a mutual affirmation machine. Basically, when you go online, you post something, you hope other people will like it, right? And when we know something that happens where people are jumping on the bandwagon, right? Twitter became this platform where we could call out people who were doing wrong things. But to what extent do we know that that might hurt the people who are doing wrong things, even more, right? Like, are we fighting fire with more fire, basically, in some ways? One thing that kind of resonated with me after reading about this story and talking about it a bit more is the idea of sending a simple tweet can influence the rest of your life and can really impact the rest of your life. But it doesn't stop people from doing it, right? I worked in a sports media class for a couple of semesters, and one example that I always used was female sports journalists and what they have to face on social media when they're just doing their jobs, right? The kinds of misogyny that they are faced with day in and day out. There's actually a video, and I thought about bringing it in to kind of show today as well, but some of the comments, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. There's a video of sports journalists, female sports journalists who, have you all ever seen mean tweets, right, on Jimmy Kimmel? Basically, having read mean tweets to them by other men, right? And it was some of the most vile, horrendous things that you could possibly imagine being talked about. So what does this mean, right? This idea of trolling, this concept of trolling, what can we do about it? In the Social Media Command Center, we're able to understand and look at how conversations evolve to the extent that they become malicious, that they become trolling situations. I mean, I'm just kind of looking at some very basic, keyword searches here. But if I wanted to drill down to find out, okay, well, people are talking about trolling and the NFL, right? So I mean, there was lots of conversation about that over the weekend, right? How are people being impacted by this concept of trolling? Monica Lewinsky actually gives a really good TED Talk on this too. She says it's called The Price of Shame. So if any of you get a chance to watch that at some point, I would highly encourage it, because Monica Lewinsky, I'm sure you all know, was kind of at the center of a scandal in the Clinton presidency. But she talks about how she was patient zero of digital shaming. How in those early days, she was one of the people who really faced that head on. And she talks about how can we address this now. One of the things that she mentions is compassion. Understanding that there are people behind what is being talked about, but people behind the trolling, right? The people who are doing the trolling, what impact are they having on the people who they are trolling, basically? And not to fall into that stream of the mutual affirmation machine where you go on seeking validation to Twitter and posting something, adding to the conversation just to get likes, but instead thinking about the human side, thinking about what the person who's the target of this trolling might be going through or might be faced with over the course of their life. One of the most obvious examples of this, particularly in a college setting, is Tyler Clementi. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the story, but Tyler Clementi was a freshman at, I believe it was Rutgers University. And there was, he went on a date one night with, I don't remember if it was a boyfriend or what, but his roommate filmed him having an encounter, an intimate moment with his boyfriend in their dorm room, unknowingly through a webcam. And when Tyler found out about what had happened and how it spread, he jumped off the George Washington Bridge and killed himself. Again, it's obviously an extreme case, but that's the danger right, of trolling, of being involved in, or being the victim of that kind of, kind of social media harassment. We see it in different ways, and it manifests itself in different ways. I actually, a couple of days ago, I was reading an article about 2 students from Penn State who their feud had gone viral because one roommate had subtweeted basically a lot of the annoying things that her roommate had done. And then her roommate found out about those subtweets. She printed them all off, posted them in her dorm room so that her roommate could see them, shared it on social media, and it was retweeted 100,000 times. Imagine the impact, right, on those 2 people, right? Imagine the impact on the conversation that ensued. So again, we talk about trolling being a malicious thing, and you have to think about it that way. How do you combat it in your daily lives? And again, I look forward to having conversations about that. But again, one of the things that we're just kind of keeping track on is how do conversations about trolling evolve? And through the Social Media Command Center, we're able to kind of measure and engage and understand in some of that as well. So with that, I don't want to spend too much time, but I want to pass it on to the next panelist. But I look forward to answering questions from you all too.
Thanks, Brandon, for setting the stage. And at this point, I'd like to ask Officer Kane to kind of talk about resources and what to do if you are the victim of social media trolling and what you've seen.
Absolutely, thank you. So I have a little bit different perspective. I've not been subjected to trolling on social media, but I've seen what happens when people are, in the form of people coming to report that to the police department. So I want to share my perspective and kind of some things to think about should you find yourself in that situation. And the first thing I want to stress to everybody is to really think about your safety in that situation. Some of the stories that you read about, the things that go viral, people say, they found out my home address, or they tweeted where my kids go to kindergarten. The first thing you need to think about is your safety. And from maybe a college student standpoint, that might be, they know my sorority, they know the apartment complex I live in, or they found my class schedule. Always address those safety concerns first. It may be that you stay somewhere else for a little while. It may be that you shut down your accounts for a little while. I know we are a real information-driven society right now. Before we started talking to y'all, I was checking my Instagram to see who liked my photo of my really cute little 9-month-old. I get it. That's where we are. That's the reality of where we are, but we have to learn how to use that in a way that benefits us personally and not those people that want to use it to harm us. So the first thing I would encourage everyone to do is think about your safety if you find yourself in that situation. If it gets to that point, that needs to be the first thing you think of. Secondly, document every single thing that happens to you, even if you end up with a binder that's, the big 4-inch binders and you've got 3 of them. Document everything that you can. If that's screenshots, printouts, whatever you can do, you document everything. Kind of in a different vein, when I'm working with someone who is going through a situation that is including stalking, we have a checklist, a timeline, things that they can track what is happening to them while we work on prosecuting this case and getting that behavior stopped. While trolling is not the same as stalking, I want you to think about it in that vein. Document everything that's happening to you. And then think about reporting it to law enforcement. While it might not be something that law enforcement can act upon, if it's a civil situation versus a criminal situation, at the very least, we can listen without judgment, listen to what's going on. We're going to be someone that can hear everything from start to finish and not think, oh my gosh, not think anything of you. We'll just listen to everything that has happened and give you some resources, give you some options of what you can do, and maybe help you think of things that didn't come into your mind when you thought about how am I going to deal with this. And similar to what Brandon said, think about that other person. That's still a person, even though they have this sort of nameless, faceless entity that they're commenting on all of your posts. I want you to really think about what is it going to accomplish before you respond. Have you ever seen an argument on the internet where the person who instigated it stops and says, you know what, you're right, I am so sorry. You are correct. I was thinking about it all wrong. I personally have never seen that. So if you choose to respond, you need to be aware that it's likely not going to end in a way that you want. But again, I encourage you to think about your safety, document everything that's happening to you, and reach out to your law enforcement partners. We're here on campus and some areas off campus as well. If it's happening at home, reach out to that jurisdiction. There are things that you can do to help. If there's no law enforcement option, think about if you're on a moderated forum. Can you reach out to the moderator? Just things like that that we can help work through.
Kelly, is there a specific way to reach out? Is there a hotline, or what's the best way to?
There's not specifically a hotline for this sort of thing. On campus, should you want to report something like this, there would be an initial report with a patrol officer. That would then get sent to investigations, and we follow up, if not the next business day, the same day, very quickly. And also on campus, you know, we talked a little bit about the term self-care. Y'all don't forget the Center for Health, Education, and Wellness. They have a lot of great programs. Whether you're going through something like this, whether you're stressed about class, whether you have another issue that you just need to talk to somebody about, that is a free and always available resource here on campus for our students.
Thank you so much. And if I could ask
Yes.
Jakob now to share his perspective, and y'all just give him some props. We have an injured athlete here in the middle of football season who's taken some time out to come and be with us this morning. So we appreciate your being here.
Appreciate it. I guess just on social media, I have maybe a good opinion. I never had a Twitter account before I came to the United States. I came to the United States 4 years ago. I was encouraged to make one in high school. They told us it would help with recruiting and things like that. And I gained 3,000 followers when I committed to Tennessee in like one day, and then another 3,000 when I came on campus. And it was like, at first it was kind of scary to me because my Twitter, I don't know about y'all's Twitters in high school, but there's a bunch of stuff on there that I didn't necessarily want, the world to see. So I kind of went through all my social media accounts and kind of made sure that they're all clean and PG-13 and no curse words or anything. And I've just really tried to be really aware with like what I post and kind of what I share with the public. I think I'm up to like almost like 10,000 followers now or something. And I just realized how like you can go viral really fast with something that you really don't expect like to go viral. I tweeted something about it was one of my teammates was caught by ESPN camera saying that he's gonna skip class, and I kind of retweeted that, made like a funny comment about it, and all of a sudden my Twitter just kept blowing up for days, and I think it went up to about 70,000 retweets or something like that, and it just opened my eyes to the fact that you never know what is gonna go viral, and when that moment hits, what does your profile look like? Is there any stuff on there that that you might not want people to know? Did you post your address because you wanted some friends to come by or things of that nature? And kind of just separate. I feel like a lot of people kind of have social media accounts that are not private, where they share their daily lives like a diary. Kind of separate that, have like if you have a Twitter account that's going to be open to the public, kind of have that as like your personal marketing tool, kind of use it to promote yourself and what you do. And then if you have a closed account where you want to tweet all your personal feelings and kind of more private stuff, try to keep those things separate.
But I would add that those things are discoverable through subpoena. Just not. You guys delete your other Twitter account.
Jakob, I'm curious, can you share any of the training or tips that the athletic department gives to student athletes who are in your situation, who are new, and all of a sudden you're in the spotlight? Do they give you some best practices?
Yeah, well, the first thing they usually tell us is to make sure our Facebook accounts are locked, because a lot of like family photos and kind of private stuff is usually comes from your Facebook account. And then of course just being aware of where you are. If you play for the University of Tennessee and Vol Nation, we love the fans, but a lot of them are very passionate, maybe too passionate about football, and a lot of them kind of treat it as their hobby to be private investigators and to kind of really find and dig up all kinds of dirt. So just kind of being ahead of the game and being aware of what you put out there and kind of controlling your message.
Thank you. Tala, will you share your experiences with us?
Yeah, of course. So basically about 3 years ago, I turned my Instagram account from a personal to professional page, and I transitioned it to promote fashion and beauty and just kind of everything that us girls, even guys, really just want to see. And so I became like an influencer in that way. Exactly about a year ago, I had the Knoxville News Sentinel reach out to me and wanted to do a story on me. And it was such an honor, and I was talking about it for days, and I was so excited. And I will say, when that article came out online and in print, that was one of the longest and worst days of my life. Of course, it received, a lot of positivity from people I didn't know, people I did, but a lot of people, and it was actually very ironic that they were girls I didn't even know that went to my high school, were sharing my article and writing awful comments, things that were not true, things that actually were true that are some things that bring insecurities out of me, plastering it all over social media. They attacked me for my family, my appearance, my nationality. They attacked me for everything under the sun, whether it was true or not. And I remember sitting through that for about 12 hours. It would not stop. From 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. it was the worst. And I remember telling myself I'm just not going to respond back, because I'm sure a lot of people in this room that know me know that if I respond back, it's going to be World War III. So I'm not going to respond back. So I sat there with my mouth shut, and I kind of related to like a really uncomfortable flight for 11 hours, just the most rocky flight of your life. And I just sat on a couch all day and just sat with my thoughts and my feelings and just cried. I mean, I was very vulnerable at that moment. Of course, the next day, which was so crazy, it was all taken down by everybody. I'm not sure if someone actually went in and did that for me or what, but everything was kind of erased.
On Instagram?
On Facebook, actually.
Facebook.
Yeah. And I luckily saved a lot of all the screenshots, so I still have them. But because of that, it was so hard because I wanted to almost sue. It got to that point where a lot of the stuff they were saying was very defamatory. They were saying stuff that would definitely harm my reputation. It would definitely harm me getting jobs. It was absolutely awful. So I have an experience when it comes to trolling, definitely.
How did that play out after the first day or two?
Like you can imagine, it was very hard, and obviously it took me back to a place where I was very not confident in myself, and it just brought up a lot of insecurities in me because they were attacking me for things that were true, like, oh, look at her big nose all over the screen. Like, they were attacking me for things I actually did not like about myself. And when it played out the days after, it was sore. It was like kind of like getting over a flu. It was like I felt very sore in my stomach. I felt very sore just talking to people. I was scared to go out for a while because I was concerned about my safety at that point. But it was almost kind of like it never happened to those people, because the next day they erased it and they moved on with their lives. But they left me in this state, and I had to kind of slowly grow out of that feeling. So.
Are you still doing the influencer marketing thing?
Yes, I am. And it's gotten better since then.
Well, thank you guys for sharing just sort of a brief snapshot. We'd love to kind of open it up for questions and see what you all are thinking and where your head is in this conversation of trolling. I mean, we have obviously listening tools we can speak to. We have, an athlete's perspective on best practices and new to our culture and country and how he's handling it. We've got resources with the police department, and then we've got, a firsthand experience of someone who has been trolled. So let's open it up and see what you guys would like to talk about. Yes.
Brandon, in looking on the stuff with social media and the trends and stuff, what do you really find are common trends, or what do you really notice maybe that you guys with looking at trolling and stuff that's just commonalities and stuff?
Sure. When you look at specific instances, let's say if we wanted to go and look at the Justine Sacco example. Maybe you want to find out, she started with 170 followers. right, on her Twitter account. When she posted this, she started with that number. At that point, it was shared with a Gawker reporter who had 15,000. So understanding how things spread based on influence, right? How trolling might spread based on influence. So what we're able to do with the software is we're actually able to measure and understand who influencers are in a particular context to be able to find out, okay, these are the folks who are pushing this conversation in a direction either positively or in this case in a trolling context on a more negative basis.
So you're talking about the concept of virality.
Right, exactly. And how that spreads based on influence. Right.
Yes, sir.
So, in today's time, I think it's inevitable that all of us are on our phones, and I was told yesterday, or I wasn't told, our audience was told by the chancellor that it's a thing where we pick up our phone and the first thing we're going to look at is social media, and so I think this panel is very, very, very important for everybody in this room. My question to you is, if you've ever done a digital detox, what that pretty much is like, just let's put all your applications into a folder and not click them until 8 o'clock p.m. Or, more extreme, let's just delete your social media for a little bit and keep it blocked or whatever. If you've done that, and this is for the whole panel, and whoever's done it, please answer, and if not, what would you do? What does that process look like for you, and how did it help?
Anybody done that?
Have you done? I've done that. I've done that. It wasn't because of what had happened to me, but shortly after I had dealt with just personal problems that I just wanted to log off everything. And I will say it took a while because when you're doing that for almost a job, you feel like you're missing out a lot of opportunities and you feel like you want to see everything. I mean, you really have the fear of missing out for sure, like inhibited in you. But when I came back, it was so funny. I was like, I want to post this picture. And I posted it and I was like, I deleted it. I was like, I can't. Like, I feel so wrong to post now. Like, I don't want to post anymore. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to ever bring myself back to social media. Not saying that social media is bad, because obviously, like, I would never say that. But in that time span that I did, log off, it was super, like, it was a big cleanse for me, for sure.
Jacob, you talked about the importance of personal branding.
Yeah.
If you step back, will your brand suffer?
Yeah, no, I made a similar experience. My freshman season, we started off losing some major games, and the fans wasn't taking too kindly to that, so they started trashing us on Twitter, and I would just read all these comments every day, and one day I just kind of midway through my freshman year, I just deleted all my accounts and kind of just went without it for a while. And when I came back, I just made sure that I realize what I'm using it for. I'm only using it to build my brand and post pictures or post things that are going to grow my audience. But I'm not going to be emotionally invested anymore or kind of looking for advice or anything like that over social media.
So it gave you a fresh perspective.
Yeah, definitely. It just gave me a chance to step back and kind of realize what are my goals with social media, why am I even using it, and things like that.
Speaking of the digital detox, I'll just add, I teach social media here in the college, and we're reading in my class this semester a book called The End of Absence by Michael Harris, and I recommend it to you guys. It talks about being the last generation, and you all are already beyond this because you're digital natives, to know what absence and downtime and being unplugged is, and lying in the grass staring up at the clouds without taking a picture to share on social. And so it's kind of what you guys are talking about. It gives you food for thought to think, wow, what if I didn't always, first thing grab my device? Because it's actually rewiring our brains, the fact that we always have this and we go there first and foremost. Other questions? Yes?
I guess a lot of you have talked about trolling being a negative thing. Do you think that trolling has any positives, especially as we're seeing advertisements follow us, that's increasing companies' revenue? Do you think there's any positive aspects to trolling?
I think it is it can be used for good in a sense that, you saw with the protests that were going on, and there were some people who were in fights or were beaten up by people, and social media was able to find those people and get those people arrested. So I think it can be a tool, it can be a way to get the information out to people fast, but it can also backlash and use the negative.
I'll piggyback on what Jacob said. I think initially, when Twitter and a lot of social media platforms came out, it was a way for folks who, users who may not have felt like they had a voice to voice their concerns with, let's say, an article, like a newspaper or a magazine or a website posts some sexist or racist article or commentary. It's a way to call that out, right? And it's a way to share, the concerns associated with that. I think somewhere along the way, it became a point where you started to favor, you started to favor almost ideology over humanity, and instead, when originally the focus was on humanity instead of over ideology.
Brandon, going off of that, do you think for those people who don't go viral, who just post and vent, that we've almost grown complacent, whereas we'll tweet about it, but we might not act on it? Do you think that that's a danger of social media, that we'll all just go to our Twitter feeds and then sigh and walk away and not really affect change? Because for a lot of people, that's kind of the conversation on social, that they talk about dialogue, but is it really a mutual and even conversation when some people has 20,000 followers on one person is 200? And anyone can answer it.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. All right, so let me just make sure I'm kind of understanding it correctly. Are you asking that, do people really have an impact in making any kind of change? Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Yeah, so one, can you really make an impact if you don't go viral? And two, are we turning to tweeting and venting as opposed to taking action? So for example, a lot of people, I know this is an issue, a lot of people will tweet about politics, but a lot of people don't vote in local and state elections. So it's is one replacing the other? Is there any evidence of that?
I think there's a concept of slacktivism.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's something because people will talk about their concerns and talk about things on social media, but will they actually do anything about it, potentially? I wanted to mention this too, because this is something that kind of in doing some homework about this, trolling, right? Particularly trolling, people who are going online and doing trolling. Whitney Phillips is a lecturer at Humboldt State University. She's the author of a book called "This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things." I love books with quirky titles. But she said in a New York Times article that trolling, it's not a question of whether or not we're winning the war on trolling, but whether we're winning the war on misogyny or racism or ableism. Trolling is a symptom of much bigger problems. And I think that kind of speaks to that question that, there are much bigger things underpinning this overall conversation.
Thanks, Brandon. Yes?
So I was going to say about that is that I don't think the issue is people not acting on the stuff they're talking about. I think there's actually a positive there in the sense of maybe the two people who are conversing about it on Twitter, maybe they're not doing anything about it, but that person that has 200 followers or 2,000 followers, 20,000 followers, you don't know who's watching it. They might have sparked the person that's going to do something about it. Which I will say, it's a good thing, but I see how it's bad because everyone's not acting on it. But I think the fact that we even have a platform where we're putting information out there where somebody's going to see that. I mean, this could be a logical fallacy, maybe someone doesn't act on it, but the odds are higher when there's a hashtag where 1,000 or 1,000,000 people see it. Someone's eventually going to see it and be wow, something needs to be done about this. That's how books have been written. That's how articles are written, just based off of Twitter. Most news sources get all of their stuff, and they're not supposed to, but they do.
No, you're right. You're raising awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
you're starting a conversation, and you never know the impact that it can have. I think that's a great point. Yes.
So I think as journalists, if we're using social media for personal branding, we're no longer just Twitter users and we thrust ourselves into the public eye. So how cookie cutter do you think our social media needs to be in order to safeguard against that? Or do you think that ultimately, if you are a public figure on social media, this will happen to you at some point?
You'd ask Jakob to speak to that.
It's kind of, you got to keep the balance between, okay, this is what I kind of aspire my personal brand to be, or this is kind of the cookie cutter version of everything, and keeping it real and kind of just putting out there what you want, and so it all depends on what your goals are. I think if you want to have that kind of mainstream appeal and kind of have a clean sheet, as a journalist, I'd probably try to keep it as cookie cutter as possible, and maybe, go the KD route and have like a fake profile where you can put all your real thoughts out there. But yeah, it just depends on what your goals are. I think you just gotta make the decision at some point that your social media is not it's not a game. It's not just fun and play. Like you're using this to grow your personal brand and to make you more money in the future. So you just gotta make that sacrifice.
Tala, what would you say to that?
Honestly, I would say, back to like Alana's thing that she said at the end, I really think that everyone's a target, whether you're using social media as a journalist or you're just posting cute puppies or whatever on your Instagram. It doesn't matter. I feel like everyone's a target. Everyone's gonna always have something to say, whether good or bad. I've just definitely seen both sides of that. So I think in that case, when it comes to like keeping it professional solely, I think it just depends on the person. I think we see a lot of journalists in our area, like at VIR or VLT, that are anchors that go on Facebook, Instagram, and they'll post, what they're doing at work that day, but you can also go home and they'll post their children. It kind of depends on their followers and like who's engaged and who wants to see that and who doesn't. So I think it depends on everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
This is for Jakob and Tala. What effect does your trolling, the negative trolling that you got, has it had any effect on your families? And if so, what does that look like in a home situation or a conversation with them?
I'll say that when that happened, that experience in particular happened to me, I almost felt like, because they were attacking my family, they were like saying awful things about my father and my sister, my mom, and I felt that I should quit what I do. I felt that like I'm putting my family in harm with doing something I love. So it definitely made me feel like scared to do what I love. But as we overcame it and we talked about it that night, I think they really put out there that they realize that there always is going to be some form of fabrication of someone really trying to put something out on top of you and really trying to put you down and tell you that you can't do something or that what you are doing is not okay. And I think that I'm really blessed and happy that my family knocked that out of me, that mentality that I should quit what I do. So I'm happy that they're very supportive of it.
My parents live in Germany where social media is just as popular, but I guess people have kind of like a different relationship to it. Like when all this stuff went down, my mom, she was just like, she really didn't care. Like she didn't see why that would affect anybody. She's like, well, it's just people saying things online, that they can't touch you, they can't physically hurt you or something. So and there's really nothing to like really care about. And my dad, he just kind of, he took it the way that he started getting mad at, all these fans and kind of started getting like a bad image of like Tennessee. But I think he kind of like, my mom kind of like influenced both of us in the sense that like none of that stuff is real, it's like it's online. If you turn your phone off, you can't see it anymore. If you delete your Facebook account, you can't see it anymore. So kind of just realizing what it is and kind of just only giving it as much attention as it deserves.
Do you have followers in Germany?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've talked a little bit about the written and the verbal emotional use of, for example, Twitter, or I guess Instagram as well. So I want to ask a question about the visual aspect, and that's pretty much dealing with Snapchat and Instagram. So if you guys bring yourself back to like a fan perspective or a supporter perspective, and this can be answered by all of you, when you're thinking about still making your personal account somebody else's inspiration, right? So say I'm following Jakob and Tala and I want to buy your product and I want to see you throw a football, right? Where do
catch
you
one.
draw that? Catch one, yeah. So on the visual aspect, what are you guys doing to still keep it, to still find a balance, right? Because I know you said you want to use it as specifically blogging, specifically branding, but when we're looking on Snapchat and Instagram, we still see you walking out to dinner and you walking with your boys in the queue. So where's the balance for the visual aspect?
I'm more open on like my Snapchat and my Instagram about than my Twitter, but that's also because I'm kind of aware of kind of the audience that you reach with, like let's say Snapchat. Like I know my future boss probably doesn't use Snapchat, or he's probably like, oh, these older fans that have more conservative views, they probably don't use Snapchat. So on my Snapchat, I'm just a little bit more myself, and my Instagram.
Is it private, your Instagram?
My Instagram is not private, no. But what I post on Instagram is like pictures that I like and that I think like would connect to like the audience. Like I'm posting mainly football stuff, or when I go out and do something here in Tennessee. But then also there are certain things that I like don't compromise on. Like I don't really compromise on my political views. I'm very open with them on all my accounts. Or I don't. Just certain things that I'm like, okay, these are certain things that I want people to be okay with, and if they're not okay with it, then I'm okay with them not liking me. So just kind of having these, like, if you have those certain things that you're not going to compromise on, then I think it's okay to stand on it.
Is it safe to say, I'm sorry, is it safe to ask that it's almost contradicting that Twitter and Twitter and Facebook are one audience and then Snapchat and Instagram are another?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I mean, I guess that's just how it is nowadays.
I think they're all different. Yes.
I guess for Jakob and Tawa, have any of those like comments, like the trolling that you receive online, like has anyone started saying stuff to you like to your face, or like you go out with your like friends and you like hear comments, like has that become where it's like real life happening in front of you?
My personal experience, because those are people that I never saw, even when I was in high school with them, and we're not even in the same community anymore. I would see people that knew them or like siblings of them. There were about like over 80, so some people I didn't even know. But for the most part, someone that I knew that was directly tied to whoever was talking directly on Facebook, I would see them in public and I would get very awful like looks, but I would never have anything like face to face, like personal, verbal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's always, people always say one thing online, but then when they see you, they don't keep that same energy. They, all of a sudden they want to be your best friend, and they want to laugh and dap you up and stuff. So I actually just tweeted about that the other day after we lost the floor. I was like, yeah, keep that same energy. Because a lot of people like to always, rain down on people and say bad things online, but then when they see you in person, all of a sudden, they want to be your friend, or they want to act a different way. So I've never seen it replicated in person.
I think that's like the truest thing I've ever heard in my life, because I know that we all personally can get really heated when it comes to UT football. So I've seen the tweets out there, but would you actually walk up to like Quentin and say that to his face, or Josh Lynn, or anything like that? So like it's so true.
I've heard that called keyboard confidence.
Yeah.
Like the ability to basically like hide behind the keyboard and post something. Yeah.
Well, and that brings up the concept of anonymity. I mean, sometimes, as you say, these people you know personally, sometimes they're hiding behind a fake account. And Kelly, I'm wondering about your idea in terms of First Amendment rights. Do those trolls have a right to protect their identity? Or, there's discussion about making some of that have to be public if you're going to make comments, having to post your real name and your real profile.
I think it really hinges on what that person is saying. I don't think we'd have a problem with some fake account saying, I'm happy or I'm not happy with whatever. But when it becomes, I'm gonna find where you live, or whatever.
When there are threats
this
involved.
crosses the line and becomes more along the lines of an assault. When you are absolutely placing people in fear, when a reasonable person says, I'm gonna change the way I get to work every day, or I'm gonna change my daily routine, then that's where the issue is. And I know a lot of people talk about the fake accounts and Snapchat, and that goes away, and it's anonymous. I just want to remind everybody that that is not true.
It lives forever.
Snapchat does not go away.
Yeah.
I've used that in investigations. It is still there.
Anything you put
your
online is
fake-
always there
It
somewhere.
is. Your fake accounts, your second or third or whatever with the clever name. Think about where have you logged into that account? Is that IP address going to come back to your home? There are ways that all of these anonymous people, it's kind of scary, can be tracked. So it all comes down to accepting responsibility for what you post online. And that's what's so hard for people to get through their brains.
That's a really good point.
To that, I mean, even the platforms that you use, like that may be considered anonymous. Like I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. But Yik Yak, even that is not anonymous.
Did
Like,
that start with Clinton, or was it Furman?
I'm not sure.
Started on one of those
It was one of those.
campuses.
It was one of the two campuses I know, but I mean, I know for a fact that Yik Yak has been used in police investigations at Clemson University.
And are y'all familiar with Yik Yak? Do you remember that one?
So yeah, and I going back to that too. I think there's an important conversation to be had about media literacy. Just talking about, going back to what Jakob was saying, like, if he's more comfortable on Snapchat being more open, understanding the nature of that platform really helps him to understand like what you post on that and what you don't post on that versus what you do post on Twitter or Facebook. But again, it's important to keep in mind that all of this is publicly accessible information unless you have privacy settings that keep that from being the case. Because I mean, that's what we pull with Social Studio is all publicly accessible information. Unless you have privacy settings that are strict, we can access that and pull it together.
But
So,
then
I mean,
as Kelly's saying, those things are still accessible.
even yeah, right.
Not for your social listening platform, but in live. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is for Kelly.
Hi.
So you brought up the fact, and I'm so happy you guys really take the safety and know that there's a way to protect. How big of an issue is it here on campus with any kind of stalking or, things that kind of cross going from just like mean comments to I will find you kind of thing?
Well, when you talk about how big of an issue is it, I would say that one is too big of an issue.
Right. Is it
So
is it really prominent on campus?
as far as social media trolling, or is that what you're
Or
specifically
just getting
asking
into
about?
harassment and
You
stuff?
mean
Well,
translating into real world
Yes.
action versus digital harassment?
Right.
I don't know specific statistics, but if you're interested in that, it's on our website. We're governed by the Clery Act, so we publish all that information online. I'm sure everyone that works for UT knows about that. But I would say that, I don't know if it's our demographic here in our university environment. I don't know if it's a combination of sort of where our society is right now and that accessibility and wanting to know and see and do. And maybe just not people really understanding that there are lines that maybe you can sort of digitally cross, right? I can look and I can see where this person is every day, but maybe I shouldn't follow that person and make them feel uncomfortable on their way to class every day, So there's a lot of education involved in that, and we do have cases of stalking. A lot of people think that their first inclination is to call that harassment. If that's happening to anyone in this room, I encourage you to talk to somebody, because there are so many ways that we can help you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is really for anybody. As of lately, social media and news media has been a launching pad for some role models, like the Cash Me Outside girl, for example, or like the singer-songwriter, like Lil Pump. They're like 14 or like 16 years old, like they're still like children themselves. But do you think the promotion of these through social media is harmful to future generations of like children coming up?
Brandon, you want to address that?
It's a good question, and it's hard to say, like, because I don't want to. I do think in a way, yes, because a lot of times too, you think about these videos of children that go viral from their parents, right? They have no say, right, in the fact that they were filmed and all of a sudden their cute little, story went viral. To that same effect, I mean, a lot of those same 14 to 15-year-olds or whatever else land, financial compensation for being influencers in a particular area. But again, that opens up ethical gray areas too of whether or not, like, these are kids, right? And they're promoting a brand and being paid for it. So I don't know. It's a really hard question to think about. I think there's more negatives that might be associated than positives, and I think you have to be really careful with how you approach that.
Anybody else on the panel care to speak to that?
I think also just because, like an example, that Catch Me Outside girl, everything on the media these days is influential, whether you're 5 or 15 or 50. So I think anyone's gonna see that, and especially if you think of like a little 9-year-old girl, 10-year-old girl that sees that, she's gonna definitely think that's okay to speak to someone, whether it's a parental figure or somebody in the workplace or anything like that. Just not that a 9-year-old would be in the workplace at that moment, but just in general that would be acceptable and appropriate to talk to somebody like that. So I think it's very influential. They can definitely, it's negative. It can be more negative than positive for sure.
I think at the end of the day, it goes back to how our generation ends up raising those kids. Like, I feel like they'll be fine. I feel like our generation is really smart. I mean, we've taken a lot of information in a lot of times, but like the next generation is going to be taking in even more. They're going to have access to even more resources than we do. So I feel like they have the potential to be like almost like geniuses, to be honest. But with that being said, since they're being exposed to so much, there is a chance that they can be exposed to all the wrong things and like internalize that. So I guess that could be a problem. But I think there's more potential for good than bad, like as far as the future of media. If we start teaching people how to be literate, like having more discussions like this.
And I just going off that, I think it's just gonna be different, like growing up back in the good old days had its problems, people were physically being bullied and put into lockers and all kinds of crazy stuff that we don't do anymore. And our kids are just gonna grow up in a world where they'll probably have social media accounts when they get to kindergarten. Who knows? It's just gonna be different and it has its own set of problems. And I think we'll find solutions to it.
I think that's the way we have to look at it. I love that response because it's the new normal. Whether we want it or not, it's here. It is. Yes.
I was wondering, I want to hear y'all's opinions on like Finsta accounts and other accounts that are fake profiles, but that aren't necessarily meant for harm, but maybe private self-expression or things like that.
I can personally say my sister has one. She bashes our whole family on it. I did not know about it until Thanksgiving last year, so it was a great Thanksgiving to be thankful for. But I don't see the big problem in them because she doesn't put her face on it and she doesn't use her name. So anyone that can go through her followers or see this account can't really correlate it to being my sister. Now people that do put their faces on, I know a lot of girls, if they take like 20 selfies and they're all really good, they'll just put them on their Finsta and have a different caption for each. We all know someone like that. And I think that one's different. You're putting your face on that. So I think it just goes to imagery at that point. For sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Finsta accounts. Find me. I just I treat them as like, I don't know, I could post pictures that I like of like weird art and stuff like that just because. I don't really know why, but it's just like, it's satisfying in a way to have this collection of pictures that you like.
It's a form of self-expression. Right?
Yeah, like almost like art or something.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is kind of a random question, but have you ever had a social media account that has been messaged or direct messaged or tweeted at and you've actually engaged that person back? Probably for the negative, maybe not the positive, but if you ever engaged someone for a negative reason, and then more than likely you shouldn't do that, but what's kind of the line and what are your parameters? Like if someone, for example, Clay Travis is notorious for sending out someone direct messages and tells them you're stupid. He's notorious for putting that person out there with their screen name and everything with it. So do you engage in kind of your thoughts on whether you should or shouldn't and why do you do it, or what's the parameter for doing something like that?
Just like retaliating almost?
Not even retaliating,
Just engaging.
Either putting them out there and saying this person's stupid, and like you just put it out there and you don't have to say anything, you just kind of go, look what this person sent me, and then it's almost like public shaming without actually saying anything.
I have, which is, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I've been way more troll than I actually thought I was. But on Twitter, some like account like posted a picture of me and was like, oh, she's Palestinian, you can follow her, whatever. And someone commented ISIS. And it was when ISIS was like cool. And I was like, I was heated. And so I like texted all my friends and I was like, go to this Twitter account and like say something mean. And I was like calling them out and I was like, you should never say that to somebody. And I ran out of characters for sure. I was really upset. But yeah, I have, and I've never done it since. That was exactly like a year ago because it didn't really solve anything. Actually, she deleted her comment. Actually, maybe it did solve something. But honestly, I felt like liberated. But at the end of the day, my route with what I did on Facebook and not say anything made me feel better at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably had like a similar experience, kind of in the heat of the moment. At the time, I was getting these random people kept asking me and a bunch of my teammates for tickets, like family tickets to games, which we're not allowed to give those away. You know, that's like a NCAA violation, and it just got to a point where it was like really annoying. So I collected all those screenshots and posted them, kind of to expose those people. And it started getting huge retweets and all those kind of things. And I left it on there for a while, but slowly but surely the comment section just started getting really mean and kind of personal against those people that I had posted out there. So I decided to like take the tweet down. And I don't think I'll do it again, just because I saw how like fast something funny can turn into something really negative and kind of harmful. So I definitely wouldn't advise it. It doesn't solve anything. And things that you might think are funny one moment can turn really negative and mean the next moment.
Yes. For Tyler, for two people who are somewhat public figures on social media, what are some things that you guys do? What are some things that y'all do to kind of help maybe like put down those kind of people who do hide behind the computer screens and maybe kind of promote happy thoughts and things like that?
I mean, on my personal, like, on my Instagram, which is where everything kind of came from, I've never received any, like, negative comments, and if I have, like, even, like, my best friend was, like, next to me, something would happen, I'm like, well, people just commented on my Instagram, and I'll just block it. So I never really engage in it, but I also don't really address it, and I'm not really sure if it's beneficial if I should or not, you know. On Instagram, it's solely pictures and videos. It's not really about the text, so it's very hard to address something like that on Instagram. Yeah, I don't know. I don't use it positively, actually, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, if people tweet stuff at me that I don't like, I don't agree with, or like that I feel like it's like are negative or ignorant, you know, I just try to keep it funny, because I know, you know, most of the people that follow me probably at least went to college at some point, so like you know what I'm saying, when somebody tweets something that's obviously like ignorant or like negative, the best way to deal with it, in my opinion, is just to keep it funny, you know, like you're not gonna change that person's opinion or whatever or their beliefs, so you might as well just take it as a joke.
So really you all are being effective by example, by the way you choose to handle it.
Hopefully, I hope so.
Yeah, that's right. What else, guys?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is like for the general panel, but since it came up about the trolling the past weekend with the NFL protest, there was a lot of comments on how people using their First Amendment rights were affecting the way they were doing their jobs. And basically I wanted to ask, how do you combat like using your First Amendment right and speaking on issues that can deal with you or like family members, and also like pertaining to like how you do your job, like how would you combat that?
It's a great question.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and that's one that I think is going to continue to be debated for sure, back and forth. But you know, it's hard because social media as a platform is deeply personal, and I know that there are some organizations that restrict what its employees can and can't say, what they can and can't do. But at the end of the day, you know, it's kind of like it's treated as if this is your right to free speech. You have the ability to say what you want and where you want and in whatever way that you want to do that. And it's hard because, I mean, there are some organizations that again, really restrict. Like, I'm going back to my time at Clemson, I know that student athletes were not even allowed to have profiles because what they might say might reflect badly on the athletic department. So, like, or at least during the season, they weren't allowed to have them, which I personally didn't really agree with because I think it limits your right to free speech. So I mean that's kind of my perspective on it.
I think it goes back to like whatever your like values are or whatever your things are that you're not going to compromise on, because I mean you're definitely you can experience some negative backlash or some overall negative experiences from the things that you post. I was told to take posts down before by people in our media relations department. You know, it depends what you want to stand for. You know, you got to be aware that maybe some stuff that you post is gonna come up negatively in maybe a job interview or something. But are you willing to like accept that for like standing on what you believe in? Kind of.
I agree with that. I work in a field that can be let's see, how do I want to put this? Can be the topic of some negative social media posts, right? Law enforcement. So you really just kind of have to pick and choose. I think what Jacob said was right on. It's all about what are you willing to post? What are you willing to stand behind? Because yes, it's this entity online, but at the end of the day, that's you and that's your name. So are you going to compromise on this and not that? I mean, I think probably everyone in this room has made a decision, and before they hit the post, they delete it, right? We've all done that. I think it's just that internal decision of, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. I wish that extended to our conversation about trolling, that maybe some of those people have that same self-control. Unfortunately, they don't.
And I'll just say, I think also, because we have been talking about like different multiple accounts for certain purposes, I think it should always be consistent for that purpose. So if you're using Snapchat solely just for fun and you only have like close 80 friends on there and you're just posting away, keep it consistent. Don't bring that over to something that is viewed by other people that are probably way more important to see something like that and can take it elsewhere and do something more damaging with it. So I think consistency is like a big thing. And I also just say with Janisha's question with the whole NFL kneeling epidemic that's really happening right now, I think in that case, the NFL players are expressing their First Amendment rights. And with a platform like Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, everything like that, we have something on our phone that is basically the exact same platform that our president uses. And whether you like him or not, we see that it is used very extremely and almost radically sometimes. And so it kind of tells us that we can use it the same way. And we almost forget that maybe free speech is very limited when it comes to stuff like that, because it definitely deals with even defamatory problems, and it just goes into the legal aspect. So I think everything with consistency and also just knowing your place, especially your surroundings, so whether you're on social media or if you're on a field, free speech,
And just to piggyback on that, because you guys are doing a great job of articulating, when you're going into the workplace and when you're interviewing, but when I'm hearing your question is also maybe once you work somewhere, how are you bound? And I think we'll see more legal parameters. In other words, I have a right to free speech, but if I go with a company and I sign as part of my employment a social media policy that says I will or won't do certain things, then, I think that's what we'll see more of. Just the NFL situation is so fluid, and I don't think there were rules and guidelines in place, and they're kind of writing that playbook as they go along. But I think we'll see employers setting those parameters up front more when they hire people, and then your choice is, am I willing to sign away what feels like a loss of personal freedom, knowingly it's my choice, or am I gonna say, no, I really can't sign that, and therefore I'm willing to not work here?
I think one of the challenges with that is that the social media landscape changes so quickly as well
fluid.
That it's hard to regulate it. It's hard to find ways to keep this from happening or that from happening. So
yeah, it keeps morphing. 5 minutes? Okay, we have time for a couple more questions, guys. Anything? Thoughts, comments? And let me just say, while you're sitting there, if you will complete this nifty yellow form and give us your feedback. We want to know if this session's been beneficial and what we could have, would have, should have done better. And thank you so much for being here. But as I said, time for another question or comment. I'm curious what some of you guys do with your own social media platforms. Do you maintain multiple identities? Do you have private versus public? You guys are so much more savvy than even people were, 4 years ago. What? Somebody tell me. Yes?
I only use one account for each platform. Snapchat's usually just my posting things. My pictures and stuff I make private for people, and only I can accept who sees and who doesn't see. My Twitter's open, but I keep it pretty like cut for more like music stuff. or,
You
like-
self-regulate what
Yeah,
content.
like, I don't go out and like bash people or like say anything like wrong. I just want to keep it funny, kind of keep it emotionally attached. So it's like I don't have any flags when it comes to it.
So you've got platform-specific strategies that you're
Yeah, it's like I'm
implementing.
really just keeping myself covered for when I get into the workplace and stuff like that.
Smart. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'm actually a dance teacher recently, and I teach little kids how to dance. And the other week, I was just at a party, and there was some funny drunk antics going on. So I put it on my Instagram Live. So I realized my student followed me and brought it up in class. So yeah, you have to realize even as new jobs you get and you start influencing people, maybe I need to like start watching out and kind of keeping things private, because I don't want that to get to their parents. So.
Yeah, for developing some self-awareness there as your situation changes, right? All right. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, really as being a future journalist, I feel like everyone should keep like a clear mindset and like not post necessarily one-sided, at least if they do, then try to keep it a little more private, just because potential employers, I mean, being journalists, they're not gonna want someone that's leaning more so on one side or the other. So kind of just like watching what you post, especially for Twitter, and stuff that doesn't really go away. Pretty much just like, I don't know, your opinion is great and all, and I love your opinion and everything, but just like employers, that's all I'm saying.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of that, I know that a lot of news stations, their social media policy says that you can't even like certain pages on Facebook.
Because that's
and
seen as
follow.
validation.
And so in the social media policy, like for example, you can't follow or like a page of somebody that's running for office. If they've already been elected, you can, but not while they're campaigning. And if you do, they'll print it out and bring it to you and tell you to delete it, because they're also closely monitoring everything that you are liking and following as well. So it's yeah.
Because there are liability issues there for them.
There was actually, there was a story not that long ago of Harvard students having their acceptances revoked because they participated in a forum and liked certain things like that, you know, the university said, we don't condone that, and their acceptance was taken away.
I'd like to ask Dr. Bollingworth to come back up and, no?
But I'm Alice Bollingworth, the chair of this year's Diversity Inclusion Week. I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Students, our digital natives, this is a really important topic. Our professors who give up their class time to bring you here, because we think it's very important. Also our panel organizers, Mark Geller and Justin Crawford, for organizing such an amazing panel, and moderator. Let's give them a round of applause. In addition, wonderful people, tonight we are having our open forum at 7 to 8. Dinner's provided. Diversity, emotional intelligence in the classroom is going to be here, open forum. So we want to invite you there because it's a little bit extra. It's the evening. And again, tomorrow night at 5 to 6, we have our own mayor, Madeline O'Hara, speaking. State of the Union address, no, but she's speaking on diversity. And then our culminating activity is this Thursday. We want to invite each and every one of you. You all have a program. Again, great programs. But our culminating activity is where we build community. We have the deans, the directors, the staff people making hamburgers, hot dogs, everything, veggie burgers, a lot of food, cultural performances, our different clubs and organizations, activities, even a bounce house, popcorn machine. It is a ball. And it's centered right here in our building and on the patio. So you need no invitation. This is free, this is for you. This is for our college. This is our 8th year because we find the issues and topics that we're talking about important. So let's give a round of applause. This concludes our program. Thank you.
So, like that for us.
Thank you so much.